In this video, we're going to talk about gaining control of your pension and making sure it's working hard for you. Don't assume your pensions are being managed correctly, and the earlier you sort this out, the earlier you can potentially retire. When you do retire, your pension should be your largest asset, as it has to last for a very long time, and it needs to be invested properly, and all the associated fees need to be minimised. I'm also going to share with you what happened when I moved my pension. We've already looked at the best broker platforms for a pension, and these have a wide range of investment choices and competitive platform fees. Pensions are a great wealth builder because there's free money that's put in from your employer and there's tax breaks from the government, and that's all explained in this video. However, the standard 5% contribution from yourself, 3% from your employer won't be enough for a comfortable retirement, even if you do get the full state pension. I outlined some stats in this video, so you are going to need to take some action with your pension to increase its value. If you've worked for several companies, you'll end up with small pension pots scattered all over the place. This is difficult and confusing to manage. So let's look at consolidating our pensions and investing in funds that we truly understand. Some workplace pensions are only invested in a single fund. This fund is often seen as low risk because it contains exposure to bonds. However, the real risk with some of these funds can be that its performance is lackluster and you can't use it to achieve your retirement goals. Beware of pension lifestyling, which involves a workplace pension provider selling equities to buy bonds in the run-up to your retirement. This could be a costly mistake for you depending on what's happening with interest rates at the time, but this cannot happen if you take control of your pension. So here we've got a Vanguard UK government bond fund, and if your pension provider moved you into this in late 2021, you'd certainly regret that decision. First step is to track down old pensions. If you don't know who the pension provider is, there's a government website you can use to find out the details. You should get an annual statement from each pension provider. If you don't get one, phone up and request one. When I did it, all I needed was my name, address, and national insurance number. I didn't need some password or employee number. Pensions are a long-term investment, and arguably they're the longest term investment that you will have. You can't access them until you're 55, and also they have no inheritance tax associated with them, so they're likely to be part of a legacy asset for you. This means that your pension could have more of an equity bias, and things like an ISA could have more of a bias towards things like bonds or infrastructure funds that you might access earlier in your retirement journey. Also, you don't have to have all of your workplace pension in just one fund. I personally don't like multi-asset funds, and I would want a separate bond fund and a separate equity fund. I'm specifically talking about defined contribution pensions where the pension has a monetary value rather than an annual payout. Where pensions do have an annual payout and they sound a lot like a state pension, that's called a defined benefit pension, and generally you're better off leaving these alone. One exception is that if the cash equivalent transfer value of your defined benefit pension is less than £30,000, then you are able to move it under your own steam to a different platform and a different pension of your choice. If the cash equivalent transfer value is more than 30k, you have to use a financial advisor, and this can be very costly, and they can ultimately advise against doing such a transfer. So the potential benefits are lower platform fees, lower fund fees, better fund performance, and possibly cash back from the new platform. So when you transfer your pension, you can transfer the funds in specie, which means that the funds just simply move from one platform to another, or you can transfer as cash, where you have to sell the fund in the original pension in order to move it to the new pension. To facilitate an in-specie transfer, you need exactly the same class of fund available on both platforms. And you'll need to check this out either from the broker website of the new platform you want to transfer to, or you could use a website like Pick a Fund that should have that information. If you transfer as cash, you could end up being out of the market for several weeks because it can take a long time for the whole transfer process to go through. This can be worse if you have several funds on a platform, some of which you can move and some of which you can't. As a general rule, exchange traded funds and investment trusts can easily move between platforms. With an open-ended investment company such as Fundsmith, the fund provider has to be specifically notified, and this can take a while. If you're moving a personal pension between brokers, find out the charges of moving a fund and closing the account at the original broker first before you start the process, as the net proceeds of the cashback potential might not be as great as you initially think. Even with your current workplace pension, you can do a transfer, but you'd want to do a partial transfer where you leave the workplace pension still open. It's your money and you should be able to do whatever you want with it. If you are told no, ask them to put the reason in writing, and you might have someone at work that's like a pension representative and you can speak to them about it. So why are workplace pensions so pants? Well, one reason is that the senior executives don't actually put much of their money into a workplace pension because of something called pension tapering, which means that those on higher incomes are limited on the amounts they can actually put into a pension. Should you use a financial advisor? Well, it's not that difficult to move a workplace pension, and the costs of using an advisor will probably outweigh the potential savings. You do just need to be very careful about the new fund that you're investing in, and you need to research that very carefully. Have you transferred a pension? If so, what was your experience? Let us know in the comments. I switched from Charles Stanley to Interactive Investor, partly to save on fees and partly because Charles Stanley wouldn't let me invest in Pershing Square. The process didn't take long. It was a matter of a few weeks. All the funds went across in Specie because Interactive Investor offer a wide range of funds on their platform, but I did find that the fees were more than I anticipated because I got charged an account closure fee by Charles Stanley. In retrospect, I would recommend considering a transfer. One thing I did note with the transfer was that I thought the cash would come across first because that's quite easy to move, but actually the cash came across last because Charles Stanley wanted to charge all the money and all the platform fees that are accruing on a daily basis to my cash balance before it would send it across. So we've looked at broker platforms, we've looked at the process of transferring. Now we need to look at the process of how to go about analyzing funds, and this video will help.